Hello, welcome to another video. There are some numbers that you can easily find the square root of. Those numbers, you call them perfect squares because you can find an exact integer or maybe a fraction that you can multiply by itself to give that number. For example, I know that the square root of 9 is equal to 3. So 9 is a perfect square because I can easily get what my answer is. However, I cannot find the square root of 8. Yeah, you can't tell exactly what the square root of 8 is. Now, a number like this is called a surd. So this expression, the square root of a non-perfect square, is called a surd or a radical. Okay, so, but there is a way you can simplify the square root of 8. You just have to ask yourself, I don't want to leave the number 8 in there. Is there a number that will divide 8 but also is a perfect square? Yes, I can break down the 8 into the square root of 4 times 2. And if you simplify this, this is the square root of 4 multiplied by the square root of 2. And that gives you 2, because the square root of 4 is 2, but you don't know the square root of 2, so you just write it that way. Now, this is a key we will need in solving this. Okay, now let's get down to the question. This question is impossible if you don't understand what you're supposed to do. You will just run around, and you don't know what answers are. But for full disclosure, for those of you who cannot wait till the end of this video, I will just tell you that the answer to this question will be the square root of 3 plus the square root of 2. That's the answer to this question. Now you know the answer. You don't have to watch the rest of the video. But if you want to know why that is the answer, you want to be the boss. Let's get down to it. Generally, every number you write is actually the sum of two other numbers. For example, if you write 1, 1 is the same thing as adding two other numbers together. Okay? So 1 is 2 plus -1. Oh, I snuck in the negative number there. Yes, just know that every single number you write is the sum of two numbers. That's common sense. You can add any two numbers together to get any number. And that is the foundation for solving this. Let's think of another foundation we need. You also know that the square root of 9 is, you know it, it's 3. But I can decide to break down 3 into the sum of two numbers, which will be 2 plus 1. And every integer that you get is actually the square root of a number. I can transform this into the square root of 4 plus the square root of 1. If I solve this, this is what I'm going to get, and I'm going to go back to this, and it's this. So it's okay to write the square root of 9 equals the square root of 4 plus the square root of 1. I am just setting the pace and setting the foundation for what we're going to do. And with this, let's get to the question. So fundamentally, we're going to have, so you're going to assume that this is a number. 5 plus 2, actually this is a number. It's just an irrational number because this is an irrational root. So this is a surd, okay, or a radical. Now, 5 plus 2 root 6, we don't know what exactly it is, okay? But something we know is that it will behave like what I just did. Remember what I said, that, let's put it here, somewhere in this corner, that the square root of 9 is equal to the square root of 4 plus the square root of 1, which is equal to 2 plus 1, which gives you 3. That makes sense, okay? Square root of 9 is 3. So we're going to apply that to this question. And when you apply that to this question, this is what you're going to have. You're going to say, let the square root of 5 plus 2 root 6 be the sum of two square roots. We're going to take the letters, let's take M and N. Okay, so we just did the same thing. Let the square root of 9 be equal to 2 plus 1. We use the same analogy and say, let the square root of this number be equal to the square root of M plus the square root of N. Why don't we just say M plus N? Well, we don't want to do that because there's this there. So we just adopt this one. Okay? So, but one thing you know is by the time you square this side, when you square this side, which will give you a 3, your answer is going to be 9. So we know that when we square this, okay, it's going to give us this. Let's try and do that. Okay? Let's square this. So what you're going to have will be M, square root of M, plus square root of N squared should give you this answer. 5 plus 2 times the square root of 6. Now we got to square this, and squaring this means M plus N square root, multiplied by the square root of M plus the square root of N will be equal to 5 plus 2 square root of 6. Let's open this up. We're multiplying. When you multiply the square root of M by the square root of M, you're going to get the square root of M squared. And the square root of the square of a number is that same number. Oh, let's make that easy, okay? Let's do this here. The square root of 2 multiplied by the square root of 2 will be equal to the square root of 4. What is the square root of 2? Of 4 rather, that gives you 2. So whatever you have here under the radical sign, when you multiply it by itself, it will always be the answer inside. It's a general rule, okay? So that's what we do. When you multiply this by this, your answer is just going to be M. Then you multiply this by this. So it goes this way, and then you multiply this, you're going to get plus the square root of Mn, which is this multiplied by this. Then you move to this one, the square root of this and this will be equal to plus the square root of Mn. And then when you multiply n by n, you're going to get plus n, just like we did for the first one. And that is still equal to 5 plus 2 square root 6. Okay? So, that's what we have. I think I'm going to switch my markers and see. Now, I'm going to erase the top part, since you know what we have right now. Let me try and simplify this. So this will simplify into m plus n, m plus n, plus, if you add this to this, it's going to be 2 of that, 2 square root mn. And that's equal to 5 plus 2 square root of 6. So, what I'm going to do is, let's erase the top part. So, if we transfer this line and bring it up here, what you observe is that this looks like this. And this looks like this. So we can establish two equations. M plus n is the same as 5, and mn is the same as 6. Which means you have to think of two numbers such that when you add them together, you're going to get 5. When you multiply them together, you're going to get 6. You've got your answer? It's 2 and 3. 2 and 3. That's it. So every time you get a question like this, all you have to think of is, what two numbers will I add together to get 5? But when I multiply them, I'm going to get 6. That's it. Once you're able to do that, you do that. You solve the question. So I believe if you do your ways of solving, you can mentally solve virtually all of the questions. Okay? Every question you see, you can mentally solve it, or you go into your quadratic equation and you solve it that way. Okay? Instead of solving a quadratic equation, I'm just going to write the answer and I'll leave quadratic equations for another day. However, I need to show you something else you need to do. So right now from here, solving these gives m equals 3 and n equals 2. Okay? Therefore, the square root of 5 plus 2 root 5, 2 root 6 equals square root of m plus the square root of n. That's your answer. I hope you got that. If you got that, you're good to go. Assuming the question was a little bit different, what would you do? How would you solve this? It doesn't look like the previous question. Remember the rule I gave in the previous question? 1 second. I said that if you're given a question where it is a plus 2 root b, you must assume your answers will be such that a will be equal to square root of m, that a equals m plus n, a equals m plus n, and b equals mn, and the square root of this, okay, if you were to find the square root of any expression written this way, where a is an integer, this is an integer, your answer will be equal to, let me put a box here, square root of this will be equal to square root of m plus square root of n. Let's say that's what I thought you were going to do. But when they gave you the question, it did not look like this. The first thing to do is to reshape the question so that it looks like this. And it's very easy to do. All you have to do is look here and see if you can find a 4. If you can find a 4 in it, then you're good. So you can break this down. So you can have 7 plus square root of 40 will be equal to 7 plus the square root of 4 times 10. This becomes 7 plus the square root of 4 multiplied by the square root of 10. And that gives you 7 plus, this becomes 2 root 10. Now I've got to think of two numbers that I will add together to get 7. But when I multiply them, I'm going to get 10. All you have to do is write your 10. What numbers will you multiply together to get 10? It's 10 times 1, 5 times 2. No other option. If you add these two digits or numbers together, you're going to get 11. But when you multiply this two, you get 7. Ooh, I found the answer. So the numbers are 5 and 2. Therefore, the square root of this number that I have, so this is going to be my m, and this is going to be my n. So the square root of this number, I'm going to get this, get away from us. We found the answer. So the square root of this will be square root of m plus the square root of n. My m is 5, my n is 2. So I can go back and say the square root. You see, you don't need to do any calculation if you understand this. You can transform any question. So the square root of 7 plus the square root of 40 will be equal to square root of 5 plus square root of 2. You are good. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching this video. I want to encourage you to please like, share, and subscribe, and tell me any aspect you would like me to focus on in any way. Thank you once again for watching this video. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.